Okay, good morning. I have just recently gotten a new webcam and I hope it's doing okay because it just says I'm recording. So anyway, I hope this is good. All right, so we're going to start chapter 6 in math. This is Principles of Math 2 and this is going to be chapter 6. And we're going to be in, rather than the accelerated schedule, we're going really fast. We're going back to the regular schedule. So we're just going to be doing one lesson per day. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So our worksheet will just be worksheet 6.1. I think it's 2 pages. Yes, it'll be 6.1, 2 pages long. But first, before we start that, let's go ahead and look at what 6.1 is about. Percents, unknowns, and rearranging equations. So we'll take a look at an important application of math. Comes up every day in life. Could be tips, coupons, sales tax, interest rates, nutritional facts, survey results. All of these things come in percents. So remember what the word means. As we saw in book 1, percents are a shorthand way to express ratios as fractions of 100. So rather than writing 6 100ths, you could write 6%. The percent sign stands for percent or per hundred. Per 100. It tells us the number that the number represents that amount per 100. So keep in mind the meaning of the percent sign. That'll help you work with percents. Since all percents represent portions of 100, you can add, subtract, just like you would fractions with the same denominator. So 45% plus 23% gives you 68%. 68% minus 23% gives you 45%. So to multiply and divide percents, however, you'll guard against errors if you convert to a fraction or decimal and then multiply or divide. So converting percents to fractions or decimals is simple. So you take a percent and you convert to fractions and decimals. So to convert a percent to a fraction, simply remove the percent sign and you add a denominator of 100 because that's what the percent sign means. And then you just simplify or rewrite as you need to. So let's look at the next page. Here's an example. Converting 45% to a fraction is 45 over 100. That simplifies to 9/20. Okay, here's 68.5%. This would be 68 and 5/10. So right here they put 68.5 over 100. Pardon me. And then you would rewrite it, pardon me, as 137 over 200. Multiplied both the numerator and the denominator by 2 to get rid of the decimal. That's what they did. So basically, pardon me, when you multiply a fraction by a fraction that means 1, any number, 2 over 2, 10 over 10, 12 over 12, 100 over 100, doesn't matter. Any fraction that equals 1, which is the same number on top of itself, then you multiply across, then that means this right here is equivalent to this. It's the same thing. It's just rewritten in different terms. And then this number is already simplified. Now to convert a percent to a decimal, you divide the percent by 100. But remember, the percent sign is another way of writing the denominator of 100. Remove the percent sign. So we're going to take 45% to a decimal. That's the same as 45 over 100 or 45 divided by 100. Now, if you'll remember, when you divide, decimal goes left however many zeros there are. And we're talking about 100, so it would go left 2 times. So your decimal would be here 2 times, would be divided by 100, so it would be 0.45 or 45 hundredths. Okay, so we're going to convert 68.5 or 68 5/10% to a decimal. 68.5 over 100 or 68.5 divided by 100. Move your decimal 2 places to the left and you get 0.685. Okay, this should be review. That's why I'm kind of going fast. You should know how to do this already. Now, it's simple to convert fractions of 100 to a percent. After all, the percent sign means per 100. So you can simply replace the denominator of 100 with a percent sign. So convert 5 100ths to a percent. It would be this. What about converting integers, decimals, fractions with denominators other than 100? Let's consider integers and decimals first. Before we jump to the rule, We're going to think this task through for a minute. If we could rewrite an integer or a decimal as a fraction of 100, it would be easy to convert to a percent. We can do that by multiplying the integer or decimal by 100 over 100, since 100 over 100 equals 1. Multiplying by 100 over 100, or 1, will not change the value of the integer or decimal, as any number of times 1 equals itself. In other words, it could be 200 over 200, or it could be 1,000 over 1,000. It means 1. So convert 3 to a percent. Okay, multiply this by 100 over 100, you get 300 over 100. Because remember, this would be 3 over 1, because that's a whole number. And you just multiply across, you get 300 over 100, that equals 300%. Okay, now we're going to convert this to a percent. Now, when you are converting a decimal back to a percent, you go the opposite direction because you're multiplying by 100. So multiplying means you move your decimal 2 places to the right. So it goes to 45%. Okay, this would go to 68.5% because you're moving your decimal 2 places to the right. You're undoing it, basically. So when you turn a percent into a decimal, you move the decimal 2 places to the left. When you undo that and you convert that decimal back to a percent, you move the decimal to the right 2 places, and that's your percent. You already knew you could convert integer and decimal numbers to percents by simply multiplying the number by 100 and then adding the percent sign. Know, though, that this rule is a shortcut for writing the quantity over a denominator of 100. It's what we're doing when we multiply by 100. Then replacing the denominator with a percent sign. After all, the sign means per 100. So as for converting fractions with denominators other than 100 to percents, you could either, 1, rewrite the fraction so its denominator is 100 and then replace the denominator with a percent sign, or complete the division in the fraction and then just convert from the decimal to a percent. So here's you an example. Convert 4/5 to a percent. Okay, now we've been studying where there was 100 on the bottom, but here there's a 5 on the bottom. 2 different ways that you can do this. One way is you can change this number to 100. The only way to do that is to multiply it by 20. Well, remember, whatever you do on the bottom, you've got to do on top. So you would get 80 over 100, which is the same as 80%. That's the first method. Second method is just simply divide. 4 divided by 5 gives you 0.8. But remember, when you're changing a decimal to a percent, move the decimal 2 places to the right, and then you would get 80%. So these are the 2 different methods that you can change a fraction into a percent that does not have 100 on the bottom. A 25% off sale, a 6% tax rate, a 20% tip. We encounter percents all the time in real life. We often need to calculate the dollar amount that percent represents. For example, the actual dollars we'll save from the sale that we'll spend in tax or that we'll leave for a tip. How we figure this out? As you hopefully remember from book 1, one way to find the actual quantity would be to set up a proportion. After all, a percent represents a rate per 100. It tells us the ratio or relationship. It doesn't specifically tell us the actual quantity. We can find the actual quantity using a proportion. Here's an example. If we want to find 5% of $50, we want to find the amount that represents the same portion of $50 as 5 does out of 100. You can find this using a proportion. 5 over 100 equals x over 50. Okay, now the reason we do this is because we're doing 5%, so that's 5 over 100, okay, equals what of $50, okay? Then you're going to do your cross multiplication. 5 times 50 equals 100 times x, okay, and then you have 5 times 50 gives you 250 equals 100x. Now in book 1, we would have found 5% of $50 with this proportion. Notice we did the same thing, except you used an X instead of a question mark. Then you divide that by 100. If you look back at the page, it left off 1. Well, right here, you're left with 100 times x, which is the same as 100x. Then you divide both sides by 100 to get rid of this, and you're left with x by itself. So 250, or actually $2.50, because 250 divided by 100, remember division, 2 places to the left, so it'd be 250 equals x. Now let's read this section. Percentage is often used synonymously with percent. However, to keep it easy to tell what we're referring to, we'll use the term rate or percent if we mean the rate or ratio per 100, and percentage if we mean the result we'd get if we found the portion of the base rate that the base rate represents. Okay, this will make sense here in just a few minutes. All right, so we'll call the number that we just found the actual amount the percent represents, the percentage. $50 was what we'll call the base. The base is the number of which we're taking a percent. If you're leaving a tip, your bill before the tip would be the base. If you're making a purchase, the cost before tax or a discount would be the base. We'll call 5% the percent or the rate. We'll use the term rate in this course as technically we could have a rate per 1,000, per million, or any other denominator, although the rate usually means percent per 100. So to clarify, here's the proportion with the parts of it labeled. Okay, this is our rate. This was our percentage. This was our base. You'll need to know these names, I believe. Now that we know these terms, let's express their relationship as a formula. The rate always equals the percentage divided by the base. After all, the ratio per 100 will be the same ratio as that between the percentage and the base. That is, they form a proportion. So rate equals percentage over base. When you use this formula, keep in mind that the rate will typically be a percent, a portion of 100. The rate will be one ratio in the proportion, and the percentage over base will be the other. You may be familiar with a different formula and method for finding a percentage, and we'll get to that here in the next lesson because there's different ways you can do this. For now, refamiliarize yourself with the terms that we use when working with percent problems and with finding them via proportion. Okay. That was 6.1, and fractions, decimals, and percents are all different ways of recording quantities. Each notation proves useful. Remember, we can use different notations to describe God's creation. All right, so that's going to finish section 6.1. So let's look at the worksheet. All right, so on this first part, 1A through K, you'll be able to use your calculator. It looks like on the whole front of the page you'll be able to use your calculator. Let me pull mine up here so I can help you with a couple of these. I should have already had it pulled up. Any day now. There we go. Okay, so this says to simplify 20% plus 60%. Okay, so it's what you're going to do is you're just going to add, because remember, when they're both percentages, you just add. So your answer would be 80%. Okay, remember, when it says simplify, it means just solve this problem. That's what it means. Okay, same thing on B. Now on C, let me move my calculator. It says to convert 56% to a fraction and then simplify it. Okay, remember what we make this? Percent means over 100. So your answer would be 56 over 100. Then it says to simplify, so you'd need to simplify that down. What do they have in common? Divide them down. Okay, this wants you to convert 56% to a decimal. Remember, you have a percent. Remember where the decimal is all the time when it doesn't show. It's just understood to be right there at the end of the number. And when you're converting to a decimal, you move the decimal place twice to the left. So your answer here would be 0.5. 56 or 0.56. Now, this is to convert 57.85 to a decimal, and do not round. Okay, so we have a percent. We want to make it a decimal. Remember what we do? Move the decimal twice to the left. So your answer would end up being 0.5785. Okay, it said not to round. That means to leave all the numbers in there. Now on F, it says that it wants you to convert 8/9 to a percent. This one you're going to divide. So it's basically 8 divided by 9. Obviously, you can use your calculator, it said. You're going to convert that to a percent now. So that means when you get your answer, you're going to have to do something with your decimal. Move it 2 places to the right because you're making it into a percent from a decimal. Okay? Now on this one, you're going to need to make it improper and then do the same thing you did here. Okay? Right here, we're converting decimals to percents. Okay, so you're going to do the opposite of what we've been doing. You move the decimal 2 places to the right. Okay? All right, so here you'll want to change this to a decimal. And this you'll want to change to a decimal before you do the problems. Okay? Now, this is to find the percentage amount. You're going to use this formula. Okay? So what is 20% of 156.24? You're going to need to know what these are. Now, obviously, there's 3 things here. There's rate, percentage, and base, but they only give you 2. Remember, there's one variable that's missing, so you'll have to put a letter there, X or N or A or whatever you want to use. So the rate would be this. So it'd be 20% equals the percentage and the base. This would be your base. Okay, so it'd be 20% or 0.20 equals X over 156.24. Okay, now if you can't remember exactly how to do that, look back over here. Where was it? It was right here, and this shows you how to set the problem up and how to do the problem, and a little bit more on the next page. Okay, so I want you to follow what they did in here. Okay, and this is going to be something that you're going to be doing a lot of. So, and then on the back page, I got a couple of word problems. And then you've got your skill sharpening here. So I'm not going to give you a grade on this page. See if you can work these out together. It gives you hints here and it's telling you what to do. So I'm not going to go through these problems with you. I'm thinking you can probably get these yourself, but let me know if you need any help on it, okay? All right, that'll be all for today.